I'm Randy Casacan, founder, publisher, and clinical trial volunteer at thisistrue.com, the longest running entertainment newsletter on the internet. I'm going to see if I can not rock so much on this episode. I've noticed that I do that sometimes. I'm going to do something a little bit different this week. I'm going to let David in Illinois completely dominate the episode because he writes several related questions about how I find and write stories. So he starts with, how do you get the stories? Do you subscribe to news sites, use news aggregators, or just roam around the web? You've mentioned in the past that you do sometimes get submissions from readers. I get quite a few submissions from readers, actually. I'll put the URL for information on the screen here. It's variable on how good the hits are. I do take these submissions, as you'll see when you go to that page, and I do get quite a few submissions. I'm trying to think about what the hit rate is. It's probably about 20 to 25%, which is not bad. I don't think that's a low percentage at all, because some of them, just I already got that story, so I can't really count that one as a success because already in my queue. But that also indicates that the reader actually had a pretty good idea about what would work for them. For This Is True, and that's a good thing. So sometimes it just doesn't work. I got one today that was from a site that was not a news site, but sometimes I can just search for that story and see if it is in a news site, because I'll get something from like an automotive site or a forum or a blog, and those aren't news sites. I want to make sure that This Is True is news commentary. So in order to be commentary on the news, it first has to be in the news. And what do I consider as being the news? Well, it's got to be on a news site. And I call that a legitimate mainstream news site. So what's legit? TV stations, real newspapers, not tabloids, not specialty newspapers like automotive sites or even automotive printed magazines or whatever. If there are any anymore, there probably are. And what's mainstream? Essentially the same thing. Or did I say it already? It's let's see. It's 11:30 at night here, so I'm definitely not as sharp as I could be. But I do get a lot of submissions from readers. I do want them to be from real news sites, and I also roam around the web. If I'm looking for some Florida stories, I'll go to some of the bigger Florida news TV stations and to see what's in their top trending list. And that sometimes gives me some great stuff that I don't see on anywhere else, and that readers don't even necessarily find. So the next part 2 is, how long does it take to rewrite a story? And there's a part 2B, which I'll get to in a minute. It completely, totally varies. Sometimes, as soon as I see the headline, a tagline will pop into my head. A slug, which is my title for the story, will pop into my head. Or, if I'm skimming through the story really quick, I'll see a quote and I go, oh, that's where I'm going to end this story. And it comes together in, 5 or 10 minutes. Just as fast as I can type. Sometimes I'll have it all. Other times, I'll write the story in 5, 10, 15 minutes, but then the tag doesn't come to me at all, and I'll have to ponder that one. So sometimes I will just leave the bare story there. No slug, no tagline at all. Sometimes if Kit happens to drop by, I will say, let me read you this story and see if you got some ideas on this. I'm not against brainstorming. It's most fun when she says something and I say, that's not quite right, but you sparked something in my mind, and I just whip it out, or I'll actually literally say to her, hold on a second, don't talk, and I'll hit the keyboard and jot it down, and then I'll tell her, and she goes, yep, that works. So, and she doesn't mind that I don't use what she suggests. She loves that she's good at sparking ideas, and she really is. She really understands what This Is True is about, and sometimes will even push a little bit and say, dig on this one a little bit more. How old is this person? Because sometimes that really matters. If it's an 18-year-old, okay, it could be a dumb kid. If it's a 47-year-old, okay, he doesn't have any excuse to be a dumb kid anymore. So how long it takes me to write, totally, completely variable. Sometimes I'll have to even let a story sit overnight, because I mostly write on Sunday. Sometimes I'll get going on Saturday, depending on what time zone we're in, because sometimes I really need to get done by an early hour here. Like when we were in UK, I would have to get going a little bit sooner, but that's okay. No worries. So let's see. So yes, readers are a good place. How long does it take? Oh, part 2B is, who is faster at rewriting a story? You, Alexander, or Mike? Or do you even track that? I have no clue how long it takes them. It doesn't matter to me. It probably matters to them. All I really want is a great story. Sometimes I push back with them too, and say, this tagline is not quite there yet. Sometimes I'll make a suggestion on what sort of angle they might go for. Mike is actually fine with me completely rewriting the tagline. Usually it's definitely his idea, his concept there. I just changed the wording a little bit to make it slam home a little bit harder, or whatever, or twist it to make it a little funnier. But sometimes my favorite thing is when I say, these taglines aren't quite there yet, and both of them have done this. They'll come back with something that's just an absolute home run that makes me laugh. And if they can make me laugh, I know they're going to make you laugh. And then part 3, how many hours a week does it take you to research the stories? Too darn many. I pretty much will keep an eye open every day, even if it's like Sunday and I've already finished all the stories, and something comes by or passes in front of me. I take a quick look at it and go, yeah, that's going to be good for next week. I'll pull it and throw it into a file and look at it later. So it just completely depends, and I don't think that's a problem. So but how many hours a week? I don't know. Good question. How many hours a week does it take to write the stories? Totally variable, so probably researching the stories is totally variable too. It just kind of depends on whether I think I have more than enough or not enough. And I just kind of do that by gut feel. The longer they sit in my file, the more likely it is that they're going to not be used, because if I'll mark them as like, this one's great, and then sometimes I'll look for that mark and I'll say, that was not great. So it's all just a matter of subjective taste and how it strikes me, and especially if a tagline just comes right straight to me. Sometimes I just get the tagline instantly. As soon as I see it, a one-line description, because a lot of times the newspapers or TV stations will put a couple of facts at the top of the page, and just that little bit is enough to spark a tagline. And that's probably my favorite thing when it happens, and I will literally type the tagline into the file with the story before I even grab the story. It's a really good feeling, and makes for a very good story for the readers. So that's probably 9 or 10 minutes right there. So I think I'll wrap it up. I was right. David in Illinois, you dominated the entire episode this week, but that's okay because it worked. So I'm Randy Cassingham. I'll talk at you later.